Somewhere deep in the Krasnodar region of southern Russia, a port that handles millions of tons of oil every year is going about its business. Ships loading, terminals humming, workers on shift. Then, without warning, the unmistakable whine of an incoming Ukrainian drone cuts through the air, and before anyone can do much about it, the sky lights up. Fire, thick black smoke, chaos. Welcome to the Port of Taman, the latest battlefield in a war that refuses to slow down, even as diplomats scramble to find an exit ramp. Here's what we know. On Sunday, Ukrainian drones struck the Port of Taman, a critical Russian maritime hub sitting right on the Kerch Strait, the narrow sliver of water that connects the Black Sea to the Sea of Azov. And this wasn't a glancing blow. According to Veniamin Kondrachev, the regional governor of Krasnodar, the attack ignited fires at the port facility, damaging an oil storage tank, a warehouse, and several terminals. 2 people were wounded in the strike. Now, thankfully, the death toll wasn't catastrophic this time around, but let's be crystal clear. An oil storage tank on fire at a major Black Sea port is not a minor incident. This is a precision strike aimed at the beating heart of Russia's fuel logistics infrastructure, and it landed right on target. So how did it happen? Ukrainian drone warfare has evolved dramatically over the course of this conflict. What started as relatively crude unmanned aerial vehicles have morphed into sophisticated long-range instruments of precision destruction. Ukraine has invested heavily, both with domestic ingenuity and international support, in developing drones capable of flying hundreds of kilometers deep into Russian territory. The Port of Taman isn't right on the front line. This is southern Russia, Krasnodar Krai, a region that many Russians considered safely out of reach. But out of reach is a concept that Ukraine has systematically dismantled over the past 2 years. From Moscow's outskirts to Crimea's bridge to now this, the message from Kyiv has been consistent. Nowhere is truly safe. What makes the timing of this strike even more dramatic and frankly more significant geopolitically is what was happening in the diplomatic world at exactly the same moment. Because even as those fires burned in Taman, officials and diplomats from multiple countries were preparing for fresh peace talks aimed at ending this war. We'll get to exactly what those talks mean and what's at stake in just a moment. But first, let's talk about why Taman specifically matters, because this port isn't just any port. If you want to understand why Ukraine hit Taman, you need to understand what Taman is. This isn't some obscure backwater port. The Port of Taman sits at one of the most strategically vital geographic choke points in all of Eurasia. The Kerch Strait, which Taman essentially guards on its western side, is the only maritime passage between the Black Sea and the Sea of Azov. Control that strait, and you control naval and commercial traffic for an enormous swath of Russia's southern coastline. Russia's Crimean Peninsula sits right there. The Crimean Bridge, that massive, iconic structure that Russia built and Ukraine has previously struck, connects Crimea to the Russian mainland just kilometers away from Taman. We are talking about ground zero for Russian military logistics in the entire southern theater of this war. Now, zoom in on the port itself. Taman is one of Russia's most active oil and bulk cargo terminals. It handles significant volumes of oil products, grain, and other commodities. Striking an oil storage tank there doesn't just cause localized damage, it sends shockwaves through the supply chain that Russia depends on to fund and sustain its war machine. Every barrel of oil that burns in Taman is revenue Russia doesn't get. Every terminal that's damaged or taken offline for repairs is a bottleneck in the flow of goods that Russia desperately needs, both to sustain its domestic economy and to supply its military. Ukraine understands this calculus very well. This is economic warfare fused with conventional military strategy, and it's being executed with growing precision. There's also a psychological dimension here that should not be underestimated. When drones strike deep inside Russia, not just on some contested frontline village, but at a major commercial and energy port in Krasnodar,
It sends a message to the Russian public that no amount of Kremlin propaganda can fully suppress. The war is not just happening over there in Ukraine. It is coming home. It is visible. It is real. Russian citizens in the Krasnodar region are watching fires burn at a port that they never imagined would become a target. That psychological pressure accumulates over time. It affects morale, public sentiment, and ultimately political will. Ukraine's military strategists know exactly what they're doing when they choose targets like Taman. And consider the broader campaign. This strike at Taman is part of an increasingly coherent Ukrainian strategy to degrade Russia's Black Sea capability across the board. Over the past few months, Ukraine has achieved remarkable success against the Russian Black Sea fleet, sinking warships, hitting naval facilities, and forcing Russia to redeploy its naval assets away from positions where they once threatened Ukrainian territory. Striking oil and cargo infrastructure at Taman fits perfectly into this playbook. It's not random, it's a methodical, sustained campaign to strangle Russia's operational capacity in the south. Now, let's zoom out from the flames and talk about the bigger picture, because this is where the story gets genuinely complex. The drone strike on Taman happened on a Sunday, the same weekend that world leaders and officials were gearing up for fresh rounds of peace talks aimed at ending the Russia-Ukraine war. And that timing is not coincidental. In war, diplomacy and military action are never separate tracks. They're deeply intertwined, each one influencing and shaping the other. So what do we know about these peace talks? There have been multiple international efforts in recent months to bring some form of ceasefire or negotiated settlement to this conflict. Several frameworks have been floated, some involving European powers, some with American involvement, some with neutral mediators from the global south. The challenge has always been the same. How do you get two sides with fundamentally incompatible war aims to agree on terms? Russia has consistently demanded territorial concessions, recognition of occupied Ukrainian land as Russian. Ukraine has consistently refused to cede sovereign territory and has demanded security guarantees that would prevent future Russian aggression. The gap between those positions has seemed at times almost unbreachable. But here's why strikes like the one at Taman matter in the context of diplomacy. They shape the bargaining table. Ukraine's ability to strike deep inside Russia, to hurt Russian infrastructure, to impose real costs on the Russian economy, gives Ukraine leverage that it simply would not have if it were only playing defense on the front lines. Every successful strike is a negotiating chip. Every burning oil tank in Taman is a data point that tells Russia this war is costing you more than you expected, and it will keep costing you. That changes calculations. It shifts what a reasonable settlement looks like. It changes what concessions each side might ultimately be willing to accept. At the same time, and this is crucial, strikes like this can also complicate diplomacy. They can harden positions. They can generate domestic political pressure on both sides that make compromise harder to sell to home audiences. There will be voices in Russia calling for escalation in response to Taman. There will be voices in Ukraine warning that any ceasefire that freezes the current front lines effectively rewards Russian aggression. Peace talks conducted against the backdrop of active drone strikes and burning oil tanks are extraordinarily difficult to sustain. And yet, here we are. The talks are happening, the fires are burning, and the world is watching to see which force, military pressure or diplomatic effort, ultimately shapes the outcome of this conflict. So, let's step back and ask the really big question. What does all of this tell us about where this war is heading? And the answer is, this war is in a genuinely pivotal phase, and the next few months may well determine its trajectory for years to come. Ukraine's drone campaign represents one of the most significant tactical innovations of modern warfare. A country that is vastly outgunned in terms of conventional military hardware, tanks, aircraft, and artillery, has found a way to impose disproportionate costs on a much larger adversary by exploiting asymmetric technology. Cheap, Fast, difficult to intercept drones have become Ukraine's great equalizer, and the willingness to strike Russian soil, not just military targets but economic infrastructure, signals that Ukraine is playing a long game. It is not simply trying to survive, it is trying to make this war economically and politically unsustainable for Russia. On the Russian side, the key question is how much more can the Russian economy and military absorb? Sanctions, battlefield losses, infrastructure strikes, and international isolation, these pressures are real, even if Russia has proven more resilient than many analysts predicted early in the conflict. The strikes on facilities like Taman eat away at that resilience incrementally. Every oil tank offline is a small but real blow, and small blows delivered consistently over time add up. For the rest of the world watching this unfold, the stakes could not be higher. This is not just a regional conflict. The outcome of the Russia-Ukraine war will shape the rules